Prince Harry's arrival at the Royal Courts of Justice was quiet, almost understated, yet impossible to miss. As he stepped out that morning, there was a brief flicker of a smile, not performative, not calculated, just a human moment cutting through months of tension surrounding this case. It was shortly after 10 o'clock, and the pavement outside had already transformed into a small gathering point for supporters who had come not for spectacle, but for solidarity. Handwritten signs were held aloft. Small flags fluttered in the air. Voices rose above the ordinary London rush, offering encouragement rather than demands. Someone called out an affectionate message of support. Another voice followed with a simple wish of luck. These were not grand gestures, but they carried weight. In moments like this, it becomes clear that despite years of relentless criticism, there remains a deep well of public empathy for the Duke of Sussex. Harry was present that day not to testify, but to observe. His legal team continued building the foundation of a case that has been years in the making, one that challenges not just specific publications, but a culture of intrusion that has become normalized. Leading the arguments was his barrister, who guided the court back to the heart of the claim: the sustained, aggressive, and often dehumanizing treatment of Harry's private life by parts of the tabloid press. The court was reminded that very few people in modern Britain or anywhere really have been subjected to such relentless fixation from the media. From childhood onward, Harry's life has been treated as open property, his experiences reduced to marketable content. According to the argument, these weren't isolated incidents or harmless curiosity. They were stories extracted from a private world and sold repeatedly because they generated profit. The claim outlined how this attention was not accidental. Harry, the court heard, became a reliable source of revenue. His image, his movements, his relationships, all were pursued with an intensity that suggested commercial value outweighed human consequence. Safety risks, emotional impact, and ethical boundaries were pushed aside in favor of headlines that sold. What makes this particularly disturbing is how normalized it became. When the subject was the younger son of the monarch, privacy was treated not as a right, but as a privilege that could be withdrawn at will. The argument emphasized that this wasn't simply about unflattering articles. It was about sustained monitoring tracking movements, publishing private details, and creating an environment where personal space effectively ceased to exist. This kind of scrutiny isn't just invasive, it can be dangerous. Security experts have long warned that aggressive media surveillance can create real-world risks, not only for the individual being followed, but for everyone around them. In Harry's case, that danger was amplified by the reality that he has lived under global attention since birth. The barrister was clear: this case is not about silencing journalism or shielding powerful people from accountability. It is about drawing a line between public interest and exploitation. Harry's years of service, from military deployment to long-standing charitable work, were referenced not to elevate him above criticism, but to underline that he is not merely a celebrity commodity. He is a human being whose life has been relentlessly mined for content. Importantly, Harry is not alone in this legal challenge. He stands alongside 6 other claimants from vastly different backgrounds, figures from music, film, activism and politics. Their inclusion sends a powerful message. This is not a royal problem. It is a systemic issue affecting anyone whose visibility makes them profitable to pursue. Each claimant brings a unique story, but they are bound by a shared experience of invasive reporting that crossed ethical and legal boundaries. The question before the court is not whether the press should report on public figures, but how far that reporting can go before it becomes harassment. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere remained focused and serious. Papers shuffled quietly. Observers listened closely as the legal team described a cycle driven by revenue rather than responsibility, paparazzi photos feeding sensational headlines, private information repackaged for maximum engagement, and narratives shaped to provoke rather than inform. This case highlights a tension that sits at the heart of modern media: the balance between freedom of expression and the right to privacy. A free press is essential to democracy, but it is not limitless. When reporting crosses into surveillance, manipulation, or the monetization of someone's private suffering, the law must step in. The emotional toll on Harry was not ignored. The court was reminded that years of distortion, speculation, and invasive coverage have consequences. Anxiety, stress, and reputational damage do not vanish simply because the subject is famous. In this telling, Harry's privacy wasn't just breached, it was packaged and sold. Outside, supporters seemed to understand this instinctively. Their presence wasn't about celebrity worship. It was about recognizing a struggle that feels increasingly familiar in an age where boundaries are routinely crossed for clicks and profit. For many watching, Harry's case represents a broader fight for dignity in a media environment that often forgets the human cost of its stories. As proceedings continued, legal precedents were introduced previous cases where courts ruled that invasive practices were unlawful. These examples reinforce the idea that media organizations carry responsibilities alongside their freedoms. Being well known does not erase one's right to personal space. Harry's position is particularly complex. He exists at the intersection of public duty and private life, expected to serve while simultaneously surrendering autonomy. The argument emphasized that this duality does not nullify his rights. There is and must be a boundary, and the claim asserts that it has been repeatedly crossed. The judge listened carefully as the broader implications were laid out. This case, the court was told, is not just about past wrongs. It is about the future, about whether existing laws will meaningfully protect individuals from industrial-scale intrusion. There was also discussion of the cultural impact of tabloid journalism in the UK. The arguments framed the issue as systemic rather than personal. A media ecosystem that rewards sensationalism can distort public understanding, fuel misinformation, and undermine trust. By positioning Harry's experience within this wider context, the legal team drew a sharp contrast between responsible journalism and exploitative practices. One serves the public, the other feeds on vulnerability. As the morning session drew to a close, the structure of the case was firmly established. Harry remained composed throughout, attentive and reserved. Observers noted his calm demeanor, not indifference, but control, a quiet resilience shaped by years of being scrutinized from every angle. Outside, the supporters remained. Their signs and messages underscored something often missing from legal headlines: the human story. This is not simply a courtroom dispute. It is a moment that speaks to shared concerns about privacy, fairness, and power. When court adjourned for the day, attention shifted to what comes next. Harry will not immediately take the stand, but the tone has been set. This is a case about accountability, about asking whether media power should operate without restraint. Legal analysts following the trial have suggested the outcome could influence how privacy law is applied moving forward, especially for public figures. A ruling in favour of the claimants could reshape editorial decision-making across the industry. For Harry, this is more than a legal strategy. It is a statement, a refusal to accept that his life exists solely for public consumption. And for everyone watching, it's an opportunity to reconsider what we demand from the people we read about and what we allow in the name of entertainment. The trial continues, with further arguments expected as this landmark case unfolds. What happens next may well define the limits of media power for years to come.